Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts. Robb Munger, welcome to the conversation today.
Good afternoon.
Great to be with you. You're joining us from Michigan. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about sustainable community revitalization projects. A little bit of a step aside from a lot of the things we often talk about, but longtime listeners of the podcast know that we often touch on social impact issues and topics, and I think this is a really important one, and we're really excited today to hear from Robb and his expertise and experience. As we get started, I wanted to share Robb's bio with everybody. Robb Munger, founder of Exodus Place, champions transitional housing for homeless men with a background in finance, where he established a leading financial company in manufactured housing. Munger's journey took a pivotal turn when he joined the board of Guiding Light Mission. There, he propelled a struggling rescue mission into prominence and transformed a former state corrections facility into Michigan's largest non-governmental transitional housing, offering new beginnings to those in need. I think that is just incredible. I'm really excited to learn more about this and how we can apply some of these principles into various aspects of community development and social impact work. Before we dive on in, anything you would like to highlight by way of your background or personal context?
Oh, I think you nailed it. I mean, really, my background was entrepreneurial and real estate developer, so it was a pretty transformational change for myself.
Can you speak to a little bit about that transformation and why you made the shift from what you'd been doing?
Well, a great question. I think the shift it was really a paradigm shift for me. My background is, since I was 11 years old, I was buying candy. I was one of those kids that bought candy at the corner store and then sold it at the middle school for 100% markup, so I could buy whatever food I wanted it, because my parents said, "Hey, this is your lunch money for the week." And so I was always money motivated, not in a greed. I see money as something that I can do more fun things with. So that's
right.
So my pivotal time, John, was when I was driving by a homeless guy, and his sign said, "I'll work for food." And I went and went to my pick up some stuff at a retail store, and it was a Saturday morning. And in Michigan, we have these gray days. Okay, I don't know about you. I think you have a lot more sun than we do, but you see the pavement is gray, the sky is gray, it's just gray, and it was misting. So on my way back, I stopped, I helped him. He stopped and started talking to him, and I said, "You really will work for food?" And he goes, "Yep." And so I said, "If you're here on Monday," and this was a Saturday morning, "I will pick you up and I will get you housing. I'll put you to work. I'll provide you food and everything." And so went to church Sunday, honestly, prayed to God he wasn't going to be there. People say today, "Oh, you're such a good Christian." Well, really, I'm not. I'm kind of probably more of the real person, I would say, or maybe I think there's a lot better people than me. So anyway, sure enough, after my business meeting, see him, help him get established with housing and everything set up, put him to work. And after about 6 weeks, John, I thought I was the one that was being his savior, pulling him out of homelessness and stuff. The pivotal paradigm shift was when I realized I wasn't put in his life to change his life. He was put in my life to change my life.
Yeah.
And that's very humbling and very, I grew up, my father and mother taught me to work. I think I was at 4 years old. I had to dust shelves in a hardware store to get, if I wanted to get a Coke or I wanted to get a Hot Wheels car. So I was very prejudiced against the homeless and the poor, because I thought if I can do it, anybody can do it. And
it's the common narrative, right? There's the the stereotypes of the poor, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you're lazy, you've made bad life choices and it's your fault, blah blah blah. And some of that could be true. I mean, it depends, but it's not really our place to judge it, right? Like we don't know their situation. We don't know what their motivations are, what their back history is. We don't know, like, do they have mental health challenges? We don't know any of that stuff. Like, all we know is there's this person in front of us that is in need, right? And we tend, because of common kind of societal narrative, that we tend to jump towards the negative, and we tend to make assumptions, really negative assumptions. And a lot of times those assumptions just aren't even remotely accurate.
You're exactly right, 100% right, John. We jump to that narrative. I mean, I think it's just a human condition that we all
Mhm.
have to some extent, but we don't know their background. And it's taken me a lot of years. And when you start changing your way of thinking, I'm so careful about judging people. I mean, it's not. Um, we have typically a little over 140 men each month that are living at Exodus
Hmm.
place, and so we have to triage them, but it doesn't mean we have to judge them harshly. But we have to see where they're at, and there's
Right.
a difference than being, prejudice. I think is not knowing somebody. You're making a judgment on color, race, sex, or whatever, and that's not fair to that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting too, like the human condition, as you mentioned, we often will judge ourselves, like we'll give ourselves the biggest benefit of the doubt, like on our flaws and our, our weaknesses, and then we can be really harsh towards others that have, everyone has flaws and weaknesses, right?
Yep.
And, but that's just again partly how we tend to function unless we recognize we're doing it and unless we're willing to disrupt that thought process and take a step back and make the choice. Like, I'm not gonna judge this person. It's not my place. Like you said, there's a difference between triage and like trying to understand the situation and trying to understand where the gaps are and what help needs to be, provided. And like all of that requires discernment. It requires, awareness, all those things. Well, it doesn't require judgment, right? It requires judgment in terms of our ability to use our judgment faculties, right? It doesn't require the judgment that we often apply, in terms of thinking we're better than them or any of that kind of stuff. So, anyways, that's really just a cool background to see your transition, how you shift careers, how you shift kind of your mentality over time. Now, tell us a little bit more about the facilities and how you went about setting it up, because again, that in and of itself is quite a story.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I was 43 when I started, because Guiding Light. So over almost 16 years. Started with, I had the building set to be donated to Guiding Light Mission because I stepped in when they had financial problems, and I was
Hmm.
the business guy that turned them around, created a structure. So they had a financial dashboard and a dashboard for outcomes because I believe so important for data. And so I did that. And then they were literally, I mean, the water company called and said, okay, you are so far behind. Once the power shut off, we can legally shut off your water. And that was,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I was set to resign from there. And then just through a lot of really amazing things, transformational things happening, we were able to keep Guiding Light open. So I had this building all set, and then I ended up resigning from Guiding Light because I had stabilized it. They didn't want to take on this place called now Exodus Place,
Hmm.
and I said, "Hey, I'm going back to my normal life." And then I ended up after a couple of weeks just had a really God experience where I felt I needed to do it. Now this is 2009, highest
Hmm.
unemployment, highest suicide rates, highest
Right.
foreclosures. I mean everything. It's the absolute wrong time. And I ended up negotiating $100 a month lease. They had a $300,000 back tax bill that I said I would
Mm.
assume. Started with four homeless guys, with a business plan, a written business plan, and it's critical to have a business plan. And I talk a lot about intentional velocity. You can have all these great intentions, but if you have no velocity, nothing's going to
Hmm.
happen. You can't
Hmm.
execute. So did this with four homeless guys. Two of them, one was at the rescue mission for overtax. He was basically a drunk tank, and then the other came from jail, and then the two others were crackheads. So really don't have a great, business team. But I had willing participants. And so we took a 38,000 square foot facility, totally empty, no furniture. There was no, and you go, oh, okay. Well, no, when you're cleaning and there's no place to sit down,
Mm.
you really kind of hit that reality button. And so the facility had actually the fire suppression system had frozen up a couple years prior.
Hmm.
And so everything had was mold, mildew. There was some carpet, walls. The paint was actually bubbled out where water sprayed so hard against the walls that the water went behind the paint. So it
Yeah.
was an extreme. You talk about extreme makeover, and I didn't take. I regret I didn't take a bunch of pictures. And back
Hmm.
then, iPhones were just coming around, so we
Right.
just do that. And so we got it going. I was going to have the men really running the program, and I still was thinking it was going to be drugs and alcohol were the biggest problem. And what ultimately ended up happening was it was prescription meds that were the biggest problem in our facility. So we have a nursing department, our medical department.
Hmm.
We have a workforce development department because throughout this whole plan was to get us to a point where it was workforce based so that we could
Hmm.
have transformation. I want to cure homelessness. I don't want to treat it.
Right. Yeah. Not just the symptoms, right? Root causes. Getting at what's causing it and perpetuating it. I think that's fantastic. So, the lift is heavy, right? And
You're
that I
exactly
think
right. It's very
I
heavy.
think that's so impressive the perseverance that's required to get through that heavy lift stage, especially, when you get in there and you're like looking around, you're like, oh my gosh, what did we just get ourselves into? And, again, we just talked about the judgment piece. I imagine it could be really easy to slip back into the judgment, and to start to like try to make excuses and like, why should I bail from this project? And like, like my guess is it's not an overnight like light switch flip, right? Like there's probably some kind of growth over time in terms of being able to set aside those prejudices and assumptions and like just being the willingness to like continue to see things through even when things are really, really tough. And I think that gets me to my next question. So beyond Exodus Place specifically now, like you've had this experience, you've had this opportunity to engage in this transformational project and approach. Can you talk us through kind of your mentality and approach towards community revitalization projects now that you're on the other side? This is what, 15, 16 years ago, and now you've had all this experience. Can you talk us through some of that?
Uh, I, with my experience now, the one thing I understand more than anything, it's about people. We have this housing first model that keeps getting brought up, and it was run in the Netherlands, which and I appreciate the Netherlands, but the Netherlands is a lot smaller, different demographic, different society. The one thing that I'm so focused on in creating cures and solutions, it has to be a people first model. So instead of making a judgment of what a person needs through just a visual, we always what we do at Exodus is we find out where their problems are, where the hangups are. I'm also doing a revitalization of Cadillac, Michigan. So if you
Mm.
look up my name, you'll see that all over Cadillac, Michigan. And it's a rural, poor community. A
Hmm.
lot of good manufacturing. Super location in the state. So there's two lakes, one's in the city. Just if you look at it as real estate, it's the perfect area to invest in. But unfortunately, there's a lot of poor, unhoused or poorly housed people. And so it comes down to talking to people and finding out what their needs are and the barriers. And once I get to that, then we can build the model in the back. But without knowing the problem, it's kind of like anybody reviewing your business. You have to find out. You have to ask the hard questions. what am I doing wrong? What do I
Right.
need to fix? I love it when clients and customers tell me what I'm doing wrong. In the early years, it offended me. Now it's like, well, thank you. You're just telling me what I
It's a
need to fix.
gift, right?
It is, and I don't have to pay a consultant to do it. I mean,
Yeah, if you can set your ego aside and yeah, and nobody likes to be criticized or like to be told something they did didn't work or was wrong or whatever. But if you set that aside and become, can have a level of security in yourself and maturity in yourself, regardless of how delicately or diplomatically or like how well someone gives you that feedback, and it may be the worst possible way that they give you the feedback, but guess what? It's still feedback and it's still a gift and it still informs you, and it can help you learn and grow. And like you said, leaders will pay coaches and they'll pay consultants like tons of money to get that feedback. And so like we should, even if it's not packaged well, we should learn how, set our ego aside and learn how to accept that and find the gem, in the feedback that's given because it's so valuable.
oh, it is. It's yeah, totally agree.
Sorry, I was interrupting you though.
No, hey, one of the biggest things that I focus on for Exodus Place, we have about a 93% success rate, and in our marketplace, just nationally, people are surprised that we have that high of a success rate because we're dealing with people with 80% of my clients there have a reading comprehension of a second grade and below. And then just the felonies and stuff. And if you have a low understanding of education, high level of desire for dopamine, I mean, you're going to end up probably in jail, or doing some
Yeah,
crazy motorcycle stuff or something fun, but get hurt. But I'm talking guys because guys, I'm talking as one. I've done some stupid things. But the one thing I work on, John, and there's a few compromises I don't have at Exodus Place. One is culture. We're always developing a positive culture. You can have a bad day, but the reality is I'm pushing culture. So we don't allow any fighting at our facility, zero violence. And people are absolutely shocked because I have people with PTSD, bipolar, schizophrenic.
yeah.
I have murders there. I have gangbangers there. I have rapists there. I have all these people. And they go, you have zero violence. I go, practically we'll have one maybe violent act every 2 years,
Mm.
and so we don't have violent acts. So but we hone this culture of a positive attitude and helping one another. So it's a people first model. So from the staff to the members, we call them members, not clients. We get them enrolled in the fact that, hey, we're here first to help people first. We're going to help each other. And then the other is we have a column or a saying is train, develop, and communicate. Most
Mm.
of the men that we have, they have gotten poor grades. They've been put in jail. They've maybe got kicked out of the army, or we're in the army and we're told to, just take the orders and shut up.
Right.
And alcohol and drugs really numb the senses, so it numbs the communication. So I'm forcing communication all the time. And with those two items, with that culture, and this is where community revitalization can really come into play, is if we have a people first model and then a forced communication. Tell me what's going on. Let's dig in and see what you need. That's why we're successful.
Well, I like how, you have high standards, right? You're able to set aside the prejudice, the bias, the assumptions. You recognize, yes, these, oftentimes the unhoused have a backstory, right? There may be legal stuff, there may be substance abuse, there may be mental health issues, there could be all sorts of things, and so choosing to engage, isn't necessarily for the faint of heart, but it also means that these people aren't irredeemable, right? Like these people can be every bit as functional and contributing to each other and to society as any of us, and they've, for one reason or another, have been down on their luck and have found themselves in hard situations, and to have someone believe in them and to give them a framework and the ability to kind of rebuild their life, it can be, again, so transformational and so impactful. And it starts with having high expectations. It starts with, holding them to those expectations. And what's incredible to me is that you have a clear track record of, yes, people stand up and they arise to the challenge, right? It could be super easy for them to kind of fall back into old habits or anything that may keep them from having a higher likelihood of success, and yet they stand up and they move forward and they make progress. And I think when we're thinking about any sort of community revitalization, whether in this case you're dealing with the unhoused, it could be anything. It could be any sort of issues that we experience in our communities, and I think these principles are going to be fairly consistent in how we need to approach it. And I appreciate the humility that you have, that you bring to this topic, that you bring to your experience, and I appreciate the faith that you show in these individuals and in this hard situation. It can be hard to be optimistic and have that faith amidst a crazy world. Like we're in a messy place, and things are hard, and it can be really easy for us to just kind of either put our head in the sand and ignore it, or to just get angsty and frustrated and angry and then not do anything about it. And so, one thing I would just encourage anyone in the audience today to do is to take a step back, take some stock, and think about, like, what can you do within your sphere of influence today to start to make a difference, to start to make an impact. And it doesn't need to be starting, a transitional housing facility, right? That's a huge project, and
Yeah,
and
it's,
uh, one that completely, changed your life path and disrupted your life. That's awesome. Not everyone's in a place to do that. Not everyone can do that. That's okay. But, like, start where you can start, and start now. And collectively, if we all do that, we'll have tremendous outcomes. Well, Robb, I note the time. I need to let you go and get on with your busy day. Before we wrap things up for today, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, and then give us the final word for today.
well, thank you. Real easy to connect with me. You can email me. So if you have specific questions, I put my email out there, Robb, ROBB, at exodusplace.org. And then also you can go to exodusplace.org. If you want to learn a little bit more about me too, you can go to mungerventures.com, because I still invest in a lot of real estate because of community developments and stuff. But the one thing I'd like to leave with your audience, and this is one thing I'm really sharing with a lot of people now, is don't go out to just survive. My mentality is to help people thrive.
Yes. Yeah.
When you just go out to survive, you're just doing it. Good enough's not good enough. Okay. Yeah, you're going to get by. But the reality is if we come with the attitude that we want to thrive, and when we're having these conversations with people to make a difference in the world, thriving is going to bring a lot of people around us and encourage them, lift them up. And my goal is to lift people up and make a positive difference in people's lives.
I love it. I love it. Robb, thank you so much. It's just been a real pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, to get connected, find out more about what Robb can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe. They can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.